I do want to talk about the audience reaction to, because you can put all the details in the world, but if it doesn't read on stage, then what's really the point? You and I have a different perspective because you and I are experiencing it on stage. We are receiving that feedback in real time. Whereas maybe if you're sitting in the audience, it doesn't come through quite as strongly. So Matt, why don't you take it away and talk about the moments that you've noticed that people are really responding to on stage, whether it's laughter or silence or ooh, or something like that.
Well, what's funny is that I didn't know how funny the show is. I didn't know how funny not the captain's character is funny, but the things that happen to him, and how it is to be reacted to is funny. And I was kind of, before we had an audience, I'm like, oh, so Jorge laughs a lot. I'm like, I don't know, is this really going to be that? Are people going to get what he's seeing? Because it's like, but no, I noticed when I walk my first scene with Elsa, there's this, mismatch, not mismatch, but like, it's not really totally working. And I don't know, I think I'm sometimes kind of an awkward person, so I can, relate to that. So I think a lot of what I do is pretty natural and people can just see it, but it gets big laughs. Just when I say like a line like, you're fun to, it's fun being with you. You're quite an experience for me. Like they're dying, and I'm like, why is this so funny? That's the thing for me, is like, I'm being honest. Like, I'm not trying to be funny, but I think that's comedy when you see it, like something that someone's going through something that is humorous. They get that. Now, yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there, but before you move on to another line, hold that moment right there. When you first read those words, so it doesn't jump out at you as funny words. Fair. Okay, fair. See, I think that's rip-roaringly hysterical, but maybe that speaks to more like I've lived my life more as an awkward person, and I had more experience with that. But that screamed hysterical to me.
No, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen it that way. Maybe I'm wrong, but when you just read the lines, it could be he's trying to like charm her or warm her up, and he's actually succeeding, but it's not successful. But yeah, no, another one that we always get a reaction on is when we're having our fight, and I'm just being like, I don't need to hear this anymore, and she says, I haven't finished yet. It's like it's like we're at a sitcom, and it's like, ooh,
there's been, every single time there's been an audible response. I don't think people really expect Maria to have much of a bite to her, especially if you've only seen the film version. But to see her fighting back like that on behalf of the children is, I think, really a powerful moment.
By the way, I haven't finished yet in the movie?
No, no, it's not. She does say, I know that you don't, but you've got to, but she doesn't go so far as say, I haven't finished yet, and reclaiming her time in that way. Yes. Okay. As far as I remember, at least.
Yeah. It is very funny also that I've noticed that, Maria's given pretty clear direction on what she should and shouldn't do, and she just ignores it. It's so funny to me. It's like, there's like, we're not doing music. Well, I'm going to sing anyway, because I know that's actually what needs to happen. So it's funny to me to watch that, being like, okay, so she was just told like no music in the house, and then the kids come in and let's sing.
Well, it's from the very first action. She's led in by Franz, who, if you haven't seen it, it's the butler, and he says, "You will wait here," and she's like, "Yep, I'll wait here." And the minute he's gone, she's like wandering around and checking things out.
Totally. She usually acts and then apologizes later. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this. Or I'm sorry, I was doing this. And I'm sorry, I was warned.
Right. I think what's really key for Maria is once she meets those kids, once she meets the kids and sees what they go through on a daily basis, nothing else matters. Then it's all about making sure that they feel like they are safe and they are loved and there is a place for them to be themselves within the confines of this house.
Yeah, I love watching Do Re Mi, because it's like it's a song should progress the story along, and it's like they go from, there should be a change. They go from like not with it, like not into it, like each kid like gets sold on it, at their own time. And at the end, it's just so like, oh, she's won them all over.
Yeah.
And then like the prayer about, let me, take care of the children so they can win over their mother. She recognizes that it's through song that they're won over. So let's sing again. It's like, I don't know. There's just things I notice as an audience member backstage, having not been at those rehearsals, where I'm like, oh, that really reads, and I'm noticing something that I never noticed before.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what Do Re Mi is supposed to be on the stage version. I know what it is in the movie. It's the picnic in the movie.
I don't really either, but I guess when I was watching it at first, I'm like, aren't they usually like all singing Do Re? Aren't they all like, kind of sold on it a little bit earlier?
Yeah.
Well, I think what makes, again, this is another thing that makes our production different, and I want to give props to our choreographer Jake, who really sold the idea that they all buy in at their own time. I mean, if it's just the fact that, oh, they're on the picnic, they already know each other, and it's just that, oh, we don't know how to sing, and she's teaching how to sing, you don't get the reward of that as much. If they've already bought into her at that point, if they're already on the picnic, they've already fallen in love with Maria, then it's like, okay, they've learned to sing, cool. Whereas now in the stage version, if they've just met her, they don't know any songs, which, for kids as young as 6 is highly unusual. They're timid, they're being ordered around by their domineering father. The idea of music brings to them joy and freedom in a way that it doesn't, I think, in the film. And of course, that's going to be a foreign concept. Of course, that's going to be something that, the more timid, the more careful children will shy away from. Of course, the younger ones who are just desperate for any connection at all will gravitate towards that more immediately. But the ones who have been living in this system for a longer period of time will and are used to it, and maybe they're in their adolescent years, maybe a little too cool to march around with their younger siblings, of course they're going to shy away from that a little bit more. So I really appreciate the way that our Do Re Mi, it's not just all of them like right away being like, yeah, I'm into this. Of course, it makes total sense that they would be a little tepid, a little bit standoffish at first.
Back to the reactions. My friend Diane saw the show, and she has been in lots of professional productions. She's a tough audience member, and she was with it in terms of the humor and everything that you guys have already mentioned. The audible gasp said, I haven't finished yet, and the strength that Maria had, and but the final stage picture was something that got her. She was like, oh, holy crap. Which I'm like, okay, then our job was done, because what it said was, because it wasn't just a pretty stage picture, right? It meant that the entire journey and the entire 2.5 hours that we just asked her and asked everybody to go through meant something. And it was all worth it, because she was verklempt. I mean, she was in, she wasn't like completely crying, but tears were welling up, So those are the reactions. So yes, I've heard the laughter at different points of time, and I've heard audible gasps. But when you get someone to cry at the end for a show that I think is typical of, Do Re Mi, and I don't know. I mean, I think of Lonely Goatherd and
well, not only that, but a show where you know what's going to happen at the end, typically, unless you really don't know your musicals. Yeah. I think it's hard to cry at an ending where you already know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I do want to mention one number of the show that is not in the film, and a lot of people who only know the film don't know about. I want to talk about No Way to Stop It. And I don't want to give too much away, because I think it's a really important number for people to see in person. But I do want to talk to you, Jorge and Matt. Jorge, we'll start with you. How did you go about this number in a way that was entertaining, but also made an impact on people, both in the context of the time period in which the show that takes place, and also the world that we're living today? And I know that's a big question.
Yeah, it was tough. It took it took weeks and weeks and weeks and many conversations. Because it was a song I did not know. I had never heard it before. I had just picked up the CD and I'm like, what the heck song is this? I had no idea I had no idea what the heck this was about. But taking a step back, Don was very committed, and thus so was I once I read the actual script, once he gave it to me. But he was very committed to making sure that we did not sanitize or sterilize or flat out ignore the political subplot of the show, which, you know, gets romanticized with the Hollywood version of the movie. And I don't know how the other stage productions are with it, but anyway, I did not know the song. And so then you start popping in the CD, you know, so my exposure to it was listening to the song, and it's kind of folksy with this upbeat time, and you know, and I'm like, what is that? So I kind of wanted to bop to it and all of that stuff. So at first, you know, my head just starts going with like some dancing and, you know, etc. and whatever. But then I start listening to the lyrics and I start paying attention to what it's about. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. And so then I get the whole satire and all of that. And you know, so I'm starting to graduate, you know, 2 or 3 weeks later with, okay, well, how are we going to do the political message? And then I'm on the edgier side of things. So I went to Don and I said, okay, you know, we could go, I mean, and I showed him 2 hands and I go, we could go as G-rated as this, as the music lends itself to be. And it could be like the Nickelodeon version, or it could go all the way full stop. Quentin Tarantino showing, you know, and I don't want to spoil it either about what necessarily the song is about, but we could go full throttle version over here. But I do want to be considerate of Naperville audiences and just, you know, etc. And so we tried to hit somewhere in the middle, and we said, okay, let's try to. So they talk about theatrical, I've said this before, they talk about theatrical conventions and different devices that you use. And so we said, okay, well, why don't we try and do it in the time period that it's in, but try to use foreshadowing so that people understand that there's no way to stop it, and we're still dealing with some of these themes today. And so then that's where we landed with the way that we were doing the song. And we were going to have newspapers to show like what the headlines were back then, and we thought about doing newspapers today to show what the headlines are today, and to be able to, you know, show audiences, look at how many years have gone by and we're still dealing with the same stuff. We eliminated the newspapers ultimately, and we went with what we landed with, and how you'll have to see how the song goes. But it drives home the point, and I think that it brings the message home without getting too gory, and yet it obviously isn't just some little dance number.
And I will say, as somebody, I'm not on stage at that point, but I will say one of the numbers that I get stuck in my head most often is No Way to Stop It. And I always have to self-reflect and be like, ooh, no, this is not something that I really want following me around all day. But Matt, I do want to talk to you as somebody who is on stage during that number. Has anybody talked to you about that? Is there an audience reaction that you've noticed? You know, how has that experience been like for you during that number?
Yeah, I don't know if I've had anyone talk to me about it, but I do notice in it, because I want to know what they're actually thinking. But I did notice at the end, it might have been opening night, when the song was done. It's a big kind of dramatic ending, you know, as far as like musically and dramatically. I don't know, the audience, we got a pretty big applause, and I felt like it's just something that I kind of felt in my gut, like, that's not really just clapping for the song. They're clapping for the fact that they're recognizing that we're kind of living in a similar world today, domestically and abroad. And it's like, yeah, it's just the recognition of, you know, hopefully rooting for what the captain is saying and being like, saying, that we have to learn from the past kind of thing. I don't know. Like, it was just a gut feeling I had where I'm like, this applause is a little longer than it should be for this song.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of being like, yes. I don't know.
Well, especially a song that people don't typically know. I mean, if it was something that they're already familiar with, like a Climb Every Mountain, of course you expect the applause to be longer. But if it's something that is a bit more obscure, and in the second act where most people kind of want to, wrap things up a little bit, if they're really with you, you can tell.
Right.
Right.
They got it. And the thing is, the song is not overt in the lyrics. It's kind of the opposite of like, you've got to be carefully taught. It's saying the loud part quietly. It's all this kind of innuendo. So, but it's very clear. It's very clear even without what you've done, I think. But at the same time, that would make people think, but we make it very clear what the song is about. So I think it was impactful.
All right. Are there any parting thoughts that you two want to give away to our potential audience?
Just the soundbite that I think our show has a definite point of view, and that we took a long and loving, hard look at how to put a lot of moments together to show you that point of view, and earned it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just say I really appreciate the whole team for this show. I appreciate both of you. Like, these kind of conversations are kind of like why I want to do theater. And if I don't have them, I kind of feel like I'm lacking something, and it's not fun for me. So I appreciate both of you and everyone else that's been a part of these conversations, really kind of investigating things, even after the show is over, like just being like, well, what about this? What about this? Like, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So come see the show.
Yeah. And I want to, amplify what Matt just said. I mean, this Sound of Music could be in lesser hands, I might say, a show where it's just plug and play. People know the characters, people know the setting, people know the songs already. But this is not that. I think our team as a whole has really put in the time and put in the labor to really get at the root of everything that's happening, from the biggest lead, I think, to the ensemble, to the orchestra, to everything, to the staging, the choreography. Everything has been carefully planned out in order to do this story justice. And I think it only makes sense for people to see the care that has gone into the retelling of the show in a way that makes sense and a way that resonates to people in 2022.
Oh my God, so well said. Love you both.
Mwah, thank you both so much.
You.
All right, come see the show.
Come see the show.
All right.